Go watch Lycoris Recoil. Quite simply, go watch Lycoris Recoil. If you have cute girls with guns, if you have great character designs, if you have some great action scenes, sign me up. But what's so great about Lycoris Recoil is that every single episode, my expectations for what I was getting into with this series kept changing. What initially grabbed me was the vehicle for which I discovered something else that was really, truly amazing about this series, and I just could not get enough of it all the way to the end. I was just looking forward to every single episode, every single week, seeing what these characters do, and I think the crux of everything, the thing at the core of this series that makes it what it is characters. But I'm going to get into all of that with my review of Lycoris Recoil, a 13-episode series that aired in the summer 2022 anime season. So let's jump right into it. Lycoris Recoil opens up in Japan, where we find out very quickly there's a secret organization that works behind the scenes, hiring and using and training these children known as Lycoris, who go out and take care of threats before they become a threat. And our focus zeroes in on two different girls, Chisato and Takina. Takina is actually still one of these Lycoris that works for the organization, the DA, and at some point she does something really irrational, takes out a huge group of guys, disobeying her orders, thus getting her fired. But thankfully she's able to continue doing what she does because she gets transferred to a sort of outside office known as Lycorico. And Lycorico is a cafe to the public, but behind the scenes, the owner and also Chisato work there as sort of arms for hire. Because we find out very quickly Chisato is one of these people that used to work at the DA as well, and she's very skilled at what she does. So now with Takina at Lycorico works alongside Chisato as they do different jobs. Now the interesting thing that we get here is that the Lycoris have the authority to kill whoever they need to kill. But oddly enough, Chisato always uses non-lethal. So there's a little bit of a head bumping here because Takina always wants to use lethal, whilst Chisato is always using non-lethal and trying to stop Takina from killing people. The other issue is that Takina technically wants to go back to the DA. So she's constantly trying to do things in order to get a leg back into the organization. Additionally, you'll learn more about Chisato, why she's non-lethal, some history about herself, the bonding between the two of them, a little bit more information about the organization DA and what they do, how they raise the children to be assassins, and overall the governance of this area. This very peaceful place that has this facade of being extremely peaceful, yet underground, there's a lot of cover-up happening. They have this system that literally goes through and erases all information about incidents that happen and performs a sort of cover-up so that the public never knows that a crime went down. So my thoughts on Lycoris Recoil. As I alluded to at the very beginning, I absolutely loved this series. And there's multiple reasons why. And like I said, it's kind of hard to explain because my thoughts on this series has evolved with every single episode. When I initially came into this show, I thought it looked fantastic, the character designs were great, the action scenes were phenomenal. I have to say, these action scenes were so well put together. They're not simple characters firing at each other. There's so many integral parts to each combat sequence, where you have characters taking cover behind briefcases and firing around them and other characters flanking. One of the unique things about Chisato specifically is that she has a strong sense of observation. So she's able to see where somebody's kind of pointing their gun, when they'll fire. And so she can kind of predict the trajectory of bullets and be able to kind of dodge them. So it's almost superhuman, but at the same time, it makes sense the idea that she's very observant and she's using that information to benefit herself to almost be like a super soldier. But again, she's non-lethal, so that's kind of the other quirk about her, and the idea that every time she fights somebody, she's always trying to fight them in a way that would knock them out or take them out of the picture. Or again, like I said, Takina is just like, let's just mow them all down. It creates an interesting little chemistry there. But again, like I said, as I went along, yes, that was the driving force to me keeping watching it. I loved the chemistry between the characters. It was fun. It was action-packed. It had great combat sequences. The animation was phenomenal. But something hit me very early on this series. I realized really quickly that the writer behind this series knows how to write characters. We have the creator behind Bento, Asaura, and they managed to make these characters feel so grounded and so believable that I hurt for them. I cheered them on. I supported them in all their endeavors. Each and every single character moment between Chisato and Takina were pure gold. I think the point that sold me on it the most was this one point where Takina goes back to the DA, and she's standing in this courtyard where they have all the dorms of all the Lycoris that eventually will arrive there once they become a Lycoris. And the sense that you get here without too many words spoken is that this is essentially her home. They're orphan children brought into this organization, raised to be an assassin, given a uniform, given a dorm, essentially again, a home. And now her commander, which is essentially their mother, has kicked her out of her home. So she's sort of abandoned here. She's standing in the middle here and she's realized what she's lost and she so desperately wants to get back to it. But then Chisato comes to her and basically says, come home with me. Come to Lycoris. Give it a shot. See if you like the people there. Try to engage with the people that we have at this cafe and see if you'll have a good experience. See if it's something you'll enjoy. And if you still don't, if you give it a shot and you still don't enjoy it, we'll try to figure out a way of getting you back into here. It was Chisato saying, I'm not going to force you, but you have a place. And from that moment there, I realized, oh my gosh, this writer is so good at writing character moments. Takana honestly is a type of character that I don't normally like. She's the over-serious, long black-haired character that you see in every single idol show. The overly serious one that doesn't want people to goof around. Take this seriously. This is important. This is our job. Don't mess around. But they wrote her in a way that made sense to me, and I absolutely adored her in the end. It was one of those moments where when you finally see her sort of break that armor that she has on herself, that shell that she has, I immediately fell in love with this character. The way they pull that off, that transition to her opening up just a little bit, was enough to make me realize, again, this writer is so good at character moments. Every time I've seen Takana and Chisato together, either if they're butting heads or having a goofy moment, or again, opening up a little more to each other, my love for the series increased more and more. They're natural moments. They feel so natural. And every time it either brought a smile to my face, tear to my eye, or just had me laughing out loud. Yes, technically Chisato is the counter to Takana. She's overly bubbly. She sees more positive in things. You'll see why that's the case when you get into her backstory. She sees the positive in everything and wants to cherish life. She doesn't want to take lives. And yes, the writing makes it, but the voicing takes it to another level. The two seiyus for Chisato and Takana were absolutely phenomenal. Especially Chisato, like her goofy nature is just perfect. Hearing Takana's more emotional situations and where she gets angry and stuff, you could just hear it in her voice. They did it so well. I could never imagine watching the show in dub. And that's not even getting started with the other side characters. I will admit that we have our hacker character, which is Kurumi. I felt like it took a little bit too long for her to really start to get in the picture, but once she started getting into the picture, I thought she was fantastic. Then we have a lot of the side characters from the DA itself, Fuki, Sakura, Erika. Absolutely adored every single one of them. Fuki and her tsundere nature. Erika and her, essentially her misgivings about what happened with Takana at the very beginning, because Erika was a hostage, and that's why Takana opened fire on everybody. Well, wasn't why, but then we have Mika. Mika is another character kind of like Kurumi, where it feels like they're not doing anything with him, honestly. He's just the big gruffy dad that's in the cafe, that's taking care of the girls, giving out orders and everything. And then you have this moment in which you really start getting into his character and his relationship with another character and getting into their backstory. And then the freaking ending. Gosh, I loved Mika's character. He's older, so you don't necessarily expect too much character growth. The older characters get technically the less they should evolve because they're set in their ways. But to see that change in his character later on, I think was so perfectly done, and I absolutely loved the impact that it really gave me. With all that said, I really desperately want more of this series. There is a couple of loose ends that they could definitely get into. Not that those loose ends not being done affect this story. This story was very well done, very well wrapped up. It's just there's a couple of little story threads that they could definitely start getting into if they decide to. Getting an OVA or a movie or something like that would absolutely, I would eat it up. Apparently there's supposed to be an event in February. Hopefully we'll get an announcement then. With all that said, I highly recommend checking out this series. Honestly, it's a series that you'll know if you're going to like pretty early on. I would say if you get around that fountain scene, which you'll know what it is when you get to it, I think that's the point which you'll really get a sense of what you're getting into. And if that doesn't really grab you, you might want to reconsider it. But I really do think that's the point in which you'll get a sense of this writer's ability to really bring characters to life. Chisato and Takana's relationship is so beautifully done. It's not overly dramatic. Yes, later on, it gets into some stuff that really does start to really pull at the character's emotions. But I think overall, the overall story doesn't try to get overly dramatic and try to push its themes too hard. They're just enough that they make sense why the characters are struggling with them, it addresses them, and then it moves on. And yes, technically later on, it does get pretty dire with certain characters. And I think that's the part that I think most people is kind of mixed on. But in my opinion, I don't think the entirety of the show is the sum of that. I think it was really excellent in order to really drive out some emotion from certain characters, to really pin them against the wall, to really see what they really truly feel about each other. And I think that was the ultimate bonus that we got from that context. Even though, like I said, most people are going to be pretty divided on how they feel about how much the writing really pushes that moment. I won't get into specifics because I don't want to spoil it, but I'll just leave it at that. And honestly, it's kind of nice to have a story like this where it's technically the whole lab soldiers type of thing. It's not necessarily like a lab soldier type of story. It's not about escaping from the lab and the lab comes to get you kind of thing. It's just all about the characters. And yes, like I mentioned at the very beginning, absolutely beautiful. So well done with the animation, so well done with the character designs. They stay on model. The action scenes are phenomenal. There's a couple episodes where the action scene was like, didn't impress me too much, but I think overall they did a phenomenal job. And man, can I say somebody in this staffing has some style, some absolute style. So many mid-cards and outfits these characters have that's so varied, and all of it looks so good. It's kind of a series that I absolutely would love to get a Blu-ray of. And hopefully some of those scenes here and there can get a little bit improvement done. But I'm going to stop. I'm never going to do this show justice. Just go check it out. I absolutely loved it. I highly suggest it. It's going to go down as one of my favorite anime of all time, just for characters alone. I think if you ever ask me in the future, give me a show that has fantastic characters, Lycoris Recoil. Show with great action, yeah, probably Lycoris Recoil. Not every episode's super action-packed, but they usually try to get you at least one scene per episode. It's just character writing 101. Character interactions 101. Every single writer of characters should watch this series. Please, I implore every one of them, if they ever listen to this. Again, I'm stopping. I'm stopping. But that's my review of Lycoris Recoil. If any of that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. I highly recommend it. Additionally, if you like this video, make sure to go down below and hit that like button. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought of the series if you're going to be checking it out. Additionally, if you're new to this channel, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you get all my content. I do news, reviews, first impressions. If it's anime, it's pretty much here. Additionally, if you want to support this content, we have a Patreon link, a tips link, and a super thanks button down below. I greatly appreciate everybody that considers, and y'all take care.